Welcome to my new series, One Take Mistake. The plan is simple. Here are the rules for this series. The only editing I can do for this video is trimming the beginning and the end. No jump cuts. Anytime I stutter, I mess up a word, I go off on a tangent, none of that gets edited out. Which is why this series is a mistake, because I do a lot of editing out. Today we're going to start with a topic that I feel pretty confident that I can discuss relatively simply, and it's how I recently got promoted to the position of Assistant General Manager at my workplace. So, for the sake of talking about it, let's just say that I work with McDonald's. It's a fast food chain that I'm pretty sure most people here can relate to, understand, know about. And it makes it easier for me to talk about this, not use my actual workplace name, because the last thing I need is for you guys to show up randomly at my workplace or to call my boss and tell him I've been talking about where I work. Also, sidebar, I got a new camera. This is the Canon T7i, which is why I can do really fun things like this and not have to do this in editing, which isn't cheating the video. So, welcome to the new quality of this channel. I hope you guys enjoy it. So, how did I, at the age of 22, having worked there for 11 and a half months, get promoted from a shift manager to an assistant general manager? The process was pretty simple, actually. So it actually starts years before this. I worked in a movie theater. I've talked about it quite a few times on this channel at this point. And during my time there, working there for about 3.5 years, I had made it to the point of being a supervisor, one level above a normal crew member and one level below an assistant manager. Now, during that time, I learned quite a bit about leadership, and I was given the opportunity to make a lot of mistakes, like being too much of a hard ass and being kind of a dick. And because I was able to get that out of my system early on in my career in supervisory management, I was able to apply those skills later on in my first management job at another movie theater, surprise enough. So during that time, I also made quite a few mistakes, and I didn't last as long there as I did with the original theater. Moved on, and I eventually got a job where I work right now. We'll say McDonald's. Maybe we'll even call it Subway. I don't care what we call it. It's not where I work. It doesn't matter. I got my job there, and I was hired on as a shift manager, or like an assistant manager. It's the first level management at the store level. Now, what was cool about this situation was getting hired on immediately as a shift manager really helped me begin gaining resume experience. See, my original intention with this job wasn't to stay there for now, starting today at the recording of this video, nearly an entire year of being there so far. See, the whole intention was to gain just a little bit of management experience, maybe 3 to 6 months, and then move on to another place that pays better and isn't as difficult to work at. Regardless, I decided to stay when I realized there was an opportunity for growth. See, my current general manager there is willing to give me the opportunities to grow and develop, something that I will be endlessly grateful and thankful for him. See, there's the stutter. See, this is what I normally edit out, but instead I can't do that. So, he gave me opportunities to grow and develop. I started asking for more responsibility, and he decided to give it to me, which we'll get into here in a moment. So, let's talk about going above and beyond. Sorry, I have notes because I can't look away and like do jump cuts and be super awkward. I have to actually physically have notes. And what sucks about that is that normally I wear glasses because I can't see very well, but you can see like the lights on my glass. It's terrible. Everything about this is awful. This is a great learning experience. Anyway, so how did I get promoted to AGM in under a year? Well, the plan was simple. I worked my ass off and I went above and beyond in my work. So the first step, of course, was learning my actual position, which at the time was a shift manager position. So how do I run a shift? So initially, I'm just figuring out the dynamics of the workplace, getting to know people, understanding some of the politics wasn't really as important as doing my job as effectively as possible. And after about 6 months or so, I finally settled into my position. And once I realized that I was stable, I was doing a good job, that's when I started hard focusing on really 2 key factors. The first key factor was labor control. Now, as a manager, any manager will know about payroll and labor. It's basically the percentage of how much is your place of employment bringing in revenue versus how much are your employees costing you in revenue. So my objective was to send people on breaks, send people home early, and make sure that the customer is still being satisfied regardless of those facts. So I was keeping labor as low as possible. It's a really good measurement for your way higher ups. I'm talking like district manager and above to look at, because there's something that's a tangible measurement of your growth and ability as a manager. So I grinded those numbers down. Another thing was effectively, we're going to call them out times. How quickly could we get an order out to a customer? And I decided to get those numbers as good as possible, because that's another easily measurable thing that a shift manager can do. While I was focusing on those two main areas, I was also developing relationships with employees, and I was also asking for more responsibility. Now, after bugging and bugging my general manager, he finally started training me on doing inventory for the store, which during my counts can include up to over 300 individual items that I have to count. And I'm still not perfect at it, but I do a pretty okay job overall. And after he started handing that off to me, I then started bugging him about letting me do interviews for the store, which he then provided graciously the opportunity to shadow him on a few interviews. Then he let me do a few interviews with him, and then he started watching me do a handful of interviews. And now, as of today, I'm fully taking over the recruitment process, which includes the screening applicants, setting up interview times, onboarding the applicants if I decide to hire them, etc., etc. But as a shift manager, that's not a normal job responsibility. So during that period of time, I was just focusing on the interviewing and the job offer if the candidate was right. And because I was asking for more responsibility that goes way above my pay grade, because again, a shift manager just focuses on a shift, I was doing work that an AGM, assistant general manager, would normally do, which would be inventory and interviewing. All that being said, I decided that if I wanted to get promoted with my workplace, the best way to do that was to do a killer job as a shift manager, doing my normal shift manager tasks, and also taking on extra responsibility without the expectation of getting any kind of raise or compensation. I'm an advocate, whenever you're younger, because again, I'm just 22, of grinding your butt off, not worrying about the money, and focusing purely on gaining as much work experience as possible. I just recently finished my associate's degree. After this year ends, I'll be working on my bachelor's degree in business management. As a manager, the most important part of my career development is going to be how much experience I get at my early jobs. And this is a job where I know I can get a whole lot more experience, because an AGM at the place where I work at effectively does the same functions as a general manager, which if you couple the skills that I'll eventually learn with eventually having a bachelor's degree, I'm going to be very hireable. And that's a huge aspect. So I got promoted because I worked well above my pay grade without the expectation of compensation. I killed it with my normal responsibilities, and I also communicated effectively with everybody around me. Now, this is a big one that a lot of people overlook. You're not going to get promoted if everybody thinks that you're a dick. It's plain and simple. Now, I'm not the easiest guy to get along with in the workplace. I can be a hard ass. I can also be a know-it-all. It's something that I'm working on, something that I've actually improved on recently. But especially starting out, I didn't really know how to be an effective manager, and I'm learning. But what's really cool is when you create a work environment that's generally positive, right? So you're trying to make the generally grunt work fun. Typically, people will be more supportive of the fact that you're getting promoted. And that's something that I focused a lot on in the past few months, making sure that I was creating the best work environment possible and making people want to stay despite the pretty terrible work hours, not the best compensation, generally bad working conditions when it comes to customers. There are things, if you can't compete with compensation, you have to make up for that in work environment. And that's something that I realized as I was working on getting promoted to AGM, that's something we needed to work on a lot with the store. And that's really any entry-level food job is going to have that same problem. It's not unique to my store whatsoever. When you have primarily 16 to 18-year-olds with a high turnover rate of employees trying to come in and come out just getting the work experience, the easiest way to entice them to stay during their college years is making sure that they know that they're valued at the workplace, and because they are. Because employees that stay above a year at a food place are they're like gods. They know everything about the place. They know all the regulars. They know all the tips and tricks of making a shift run effectively, and they're going to have your back. And that you can't just buy that by offering higher compensation. You have to be able to make up that difference by creating a good work environment, which is something that I strive to do. So to sum up the topic of the video, to make a very long story short, the way that I got promoted early on was taking into account what I needed to learn at my current position what I need to learn to get to the next level, and being okay with doing the extra work and front loading that effort so I could get that promotion with little to no friction. Because we ran the store about 5 or 6 months without having an AGM. It was a lot of pressure for our current GM. I wanted to help alleviate that pressure, and as a byproduct of what I was doing, it led me to eventually being the candidate to get the position that I'm in now. I hope that my first time doing this video in a series was acceptable. Again, I can only do this in one take. I don't get any redos. So I'm hoping that what I said made sense. I hope it didn't come off as arrogant, because that wasn't the point of the video. The point of the video was to educate on how I got to where I am. Now, your mileage may vary. My advice may not work for every single working scenario. Other places, different processes for promotion. Sometimes it's like how long you've been working your position, how long you've worked for the company, etc., etc. But where I work, that wasn't as much of an issue, and I was able to I got lucky in a lot of ways, because the open position was there, and I had the most amount of training, and I had the most willingness to get promoted, because it's not the easiest position to work in, and coupling a bunch of different factors, a lot of it being luck, and a lot of it being in the right place in the right time, I was able to get that position. So I hope this made sense. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please feel free to leave a like. It's greatly appreciated. I also would encourage you to leave a comment down below. Not to mention, I have an Instagram and a website, both sorta casual. The links will be down in the description below, and I hope you guys go ahead and check that out for more content from me. And if you want to see more content just like this, go ahead and subscribe, and do not forget to keep it casual.